Thank you both for coming out today. I know this is not a regular scheduled event, so I'm sure that affected the turnout quite a bit. But very happy to have you here, and happy to thanks Russell for arranging all this. This is the third day of this for me. I was in Houston and San Antonio, and I'll be done after we do the Atheist Experience this afternoon. This talk is kind of a personal talk, and the title of it is Why Atheism Isn't Enough. And it's really the story of my journey from being primarily an atheist activist to being a humanist. I guess you can be both of those things at the same time, of course. But the focus of sort of where my activism is really shifted over the last few years. And I wanted to kind of explain why. Now, those of you who don't know me, probably don't know anything about my very odd religious upbringing. I was raised by, my father is atheist, has been since he was 16 years old. My stepmother, who was really the woman that raised me, is Pentecostal. And January 5th, next year, they will celebrate 40 years of marriage. I'm not quite sure how that works, but it seems to. As a teenager, I became a devout Christian. I was the president of our local Youth for Christ in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But at about 16 years old, like I think a lot of people do who were raised with that, I started asking questions and getting very bad answers. Things just weren't making sense as I was reading more and more of the Bible. And there's an old, people often talk about, I'd still be a Christian today if I had read the Bible so much. Which is, not always true, but it certainly was true for me. And the more I dug into it, the more I just saw things that didn't make any sense to me. And so I would just pepper my ministers with questions. They didn't really have very good answers. They handed me, like Josh McDowell's book, Answers to 101 Questions About Christianity, which just contained more bad answers. And so after about a year and a half of really sort of seriously studying Christianity and science, ultimately just came to the conclusion I could no longer believe it. So by the age of 18, I was an atheist. And it didn't take me long for me to become an activist as well. And what it took was, in college, a friend of mine was a devout Christian and a creationist. And one day, we used to argue about this all the time. One day he said, I can prove this to you. I want to take you to this seminar happening in the church nearby next week. And the seminar was put on by the fiendish and vapid Dr. Ken Hogan. Familiar chuckle from the audience. I was so appalled by what I heard there, just lie after lie after lie, distorting the science, that I decided to start writing against this, and I did. And after spending about 20 years as an atheist activist, primarily attacking religion, and I'm not saying that's not important, we'll get to that a little bit later, it started to occur to me that it wasn't really enough for me. That ultimately it's not enough to fight against something. What do you have to fight for? So that my atheism, or my activism really began to change at that point. There were a few epiphanies along the way. And the first one was in 2009. When I had the amazing opportunity to spend a few hours with just a small group of people and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And this is not a very young audience. I speak to SSA clubs, and when I say that name, they go, who? So I'm sure you all know who Desmond Tutu is. For me, this was like meeting Martin Luther King or Sojourner Truth, or Harriet Tubman. What he did to bring down apartheid along with Nelson Mandela was extraordinary. A man of real, I think, moral courage and physical courage who really put his life on the line. But he didn't stop with apartheid. After they overthrew the apartheid regime and got majority control, then he turned to other things. And he used his enormous public standing around the world to fight for gay rights, women's rights, children's rights around the world. He fought, he spent the intervening 30 years or so being a champion for the oppressed. And obviously he and I have very different starting points, right? I'm an atheist and he's a Christian. We got into a conversation about this, and what he said to me then was, well, first he said, let me explain why I do what I do. He said, I do that because I genuinely believe that if Jesus were alive today, that's what he would be doing. And he cited the woman at the well, and he who is without sin cast the first stone, and such. And he said, if you want to do good things, if you want to help make the world a better place, and help fight against injustice and inequality and discrimination, then you're on my team. And I don't care whether you're an atheist, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever. If you want to do good things, let's do good things together. And that really got me thinking about this idea of interfaith cooperation. And this wasn't an entirely new thought to me. The only reason I got this opportunity to sit with Bishop Tutu was that a very dear friend of mine was the Episcopalian leader on the Michigan State University campus. He was in town to do commencement. And so she kind of controlled his schedule for all of that. And she scheduled this, and it was mostly students, but she got me an invitation to come to it. So, and I had worked with her, she's an Episcopalian priest. She's lesbian. Episcopalians even have transgender priests. They're pretty liberal when it comes to this stuff. And she and I have worked on anti-discrimination projects together. We fed the homeless together. So the idea of interfaith cooperation wasn't entirely new to me. I had volunteered solo at soup kitchens and homeless missions and nothing like that. But this really got me thinking about it anew, that this should probably be happening not just at an individual level, but at a collective level. Organizations joining forces to do this kind of thing. So 3 years ago, I gave a talk in Grand Rapids at our annual Interfaith Thanksgiving service. And I think we're into the 18th year of that. There's a group called the Kaufman Interfaith Council that organizes this. And so I was asked to talk on behalf of the Center for Inquiry of Michigan, which is a group I'm on the board of. And I only had about 5 minutes to talk. But what I said, it's really nice that we all get together once a year and say nice things about one another. Well, why are we just doing that? We have these sizable organizations. I mean, we're the smallest by far. The huge mosques and temples and Christian churches. Why don't we pool our resources together and actually try to make a difference in this community? And not just get together once a year and say a few nice things. And about 20 minutes after I gave that talk, a local Buddhist monk who was giving a sort of keynote speech got up and gave about a 20-minute talk on the same subject, and far more eloquently than I could. And so the Kaufman Interfaith Center decided to run with that idea. And they got everybody together and said, we want to declare June 2015 to June 2016 as the year of interfaith service. And so over the course of that year, we did Habitat for Humanity builds. We packed lunches for underprivileged children. We did children's book drives, homeless shelter volunteerism, all sorts of things. And I know you guys did a lot of that here in Austin. And at the end of it, in June 2016, it was so successful and was doing so much good, they said, well, why are we going to end this after a year? Let's just make this a permanent thing. And I'm really proud to have played at least a small role in helping sort of get the ball rolling on that. So meeting Bishop Tutu was a big milestone along the way, but there were other things. And one of them, big influences on me at that time, and still, and a dear friend, is a guy named Dale McGowan. Here knows who Dale is. Best known probably for his book, Parenting Beyond Belief, about raising secular children, but what he really ought to be known for, more than anything, I think, besides his incredible knowledge of music, is founding the Foundation Beyond Belief in 2010. And this is the largest atheist humanist charity in the country. And Dale had been reading all these studies, and the studies are accurate, that say religious people give far more money to charity than secular people do. And it's true even if you take, part of the definition of charity is given to your church because it's a nonprofit. Even if you take that out, tithing to the church, they still give at a far greater rate than secular people. And Dale said, this isn't because secular people are less charitable, less compassionate than religious people. So what he figured out was the reason for that distinction, the reason for that disparity is churchgoers are given the opportunity constantly to give money to good causes. I mean, almost every week in church, many of them, they're passing the plate for, support an orphanage over here or a homeless mission over here. They're given that opportunity, and so they jump in and help out. We don't have anything like that, or didn't have anything like that in the atheist and humanist community. And so he created Foundation Beyond Belief to kind of pool those resources. And the way it works is you pledge a certain amount of money each month, $10, $20, $50, whatever. And every quarter they pick a new slate of beneficiary organizations in 5 different areas: health and poverty, environment and natural world. I'm embarrassed, I don't know these right off the top of my head. The Challenge the Gap grant, which actually goes to a religious organization. But, I mean, the key rule is all of these beneficiaries have to be doing something really worthwhile and making a difference. They have to have sort of evidence-based accounting for the good that they're doing so that we know it's working. And they have to be small enough that the grant they would get from Foundation Beyond Belief would make a real difference to them. And so every quarter, the people who sign up can go into the website to their account and decide which of those 5 charities for the next quarter they want their money to go to. And, one particular area just might be something that really moves them. And so all my contribution to go to that one, or I'll split between these 2 or between all 5. And I think it's a really good thing. Now, full disclosure, I did used to work for Foundation Beyond Belief for a couple of years in a very tiny little position, 5 hours a week, which I wasn't even looking for a job. And the only reason I accepted it was because I wanted the opportunity to work with Dale and to help his organization, which I really, really strongly support. There really are very few people I found who can express the ideals of humanism anywhere near as well as Dale. And he's incredibly eloquent at this. And in 2014, he asked me to organize the Foundation's first national conference, which we held in Chicago. And we named the conference the Humanism at Work Conference. And we chose that title because it really exemplified the ideal of the organization, which is, it isn't enough to just talk about your humanist ideals. You may have a big list of all the things that you believe in, but if that list is just sitting on a piece of paper or a painting on the wall, it's not doing a damn bit of good. You have to actually put it into action for it to mean anything. Dale likes to say that atheism is the first step, and humanism is the next 1,000 steps. One of the things that I'm really proud of with the Foundation Beyond Belief is they created something called the Humanist Service Corps a couple of years ago. And it's a secular humanist alternative to the Peace Corps. And the Peace Corps does a lot of very great work. But they don't have a specifically secular humanist perspective. And the distinction really is the approach to how you go about helping people. One of the core principles of the Humanist Service Corps is we're not coming in as the white savior to fix all of your problems. They're going in to learn from people and then to help find some solutions and train them up so that when they leave after a year or 2, they can be self-sufficient. And as I speak, anyway, there are 5 young people in northern Ghana working in the Kakua witch camps. And it shocks a lot of people to find out we still have witch hunts going on in the 21st century, but we do. Particularly in some countries in northern Africa, Ghana, Uganda, Nigeria, and Kenya. And every year, hundreds, maybe thousands of people are accused of witchcraft. They say people, it's almost entirely women and children. Very rarely does a man get accused of this. And frequently it's for sort of nefarious reason. A lot of these societies are polygamous. And so, the guy takes a new young wife, and the young wife then accuses one of the older wives of witchcraft to get rid of her, stuff like that. But it can be as simple as a child that cries too much of that. And this mixture of Christianity and their traditional African animist beliefs in demons, and he's crying at night because he's possessed, he's a witch. And they end up getting thrown out of their families, thrown out of their villages, basically left to die. There have been some cases where people have been beaten to death, set on fire to try to purge this witchcraft from their villages. It's an incredibly tragic thing. And so the lucky ones end up in these witch camps in northern Ghana. And there's 3 or 4 of them that are all sort of connected. And so the Humanist Service Corps people are there. There's 2 of them from Ghana and 3 from the United States. And they're doing things like helping them dig wells for fresh water because you currently have to walk 2 or 3 miles to get fresh water. They're setting up a medical record system. So they brought in physicians to do an initial checkup on everyone. get a baseline on what their health problems might be, and then they're building a medical record system in multiple languages so that in the future, if they get medical treatment, the doctor has an access to their medical history. And that can really help in later diagnosis of problems. And now I was born an old curmudgeon. My first spoken words were goddamn kids these days. And I often joke about that to this day, but I don't really mean it. In fact, I believe exactly the opposite. And when people start, old guys like me really do start, these kids these days are lazy, they just rub fingers on video games, smoking pot, and listen to that terrible music, and whenever I hear that, I like to respond with, let me introduce you to a few young people that walked away from their comfortable, privileged lives in the United States to live in huts with no running water and no electricity for 2 years to help people they have never seen before. At 21, 22 years old. And, damn kids these days, we should be so lucky to have more damn kids like that, right? This was all created by a guy named Connor Robinson. And about 4 or 5 years ago, he graduated from Yale. And he had created the Yale Humanist Society and got the school to bring on the first humanist chaplain at Yale. And now there's one at Harvard, there's one at MIT, and there's one at Tufts. It's an idea that started to spread. When Connor graduated, he just said, I don't want to just go get a job. I want to work at a corporation. I want to do something that really makes a difference. So he came up with this idea, and he approached Dale McGowan, and he said, this is what I want to do. Would you be willing to put this under the umbrella of Foundation Beyond Belief? And Dale said, absolutely, this is an amazing idea. So, creating that is something that, I played just a small role in this, mostly in helping raise funds for it, but this is the kind of activism on a very large scale that I'm talking about when I say humanist activism, really putting those ideas in action. One other thing that really stepped this up for me was about 4 years ago I had open heart surgery. And they thought I was having a heart attack. It turns out I wasn't. In fact, my heart's absolutely fine. And I won't go into the whole diagnosis, which was really weird. It's an autoimmune disorder that causes it all. But for the first time in my life, the only surgery I had up until then was my tonsils out my leg. I had never faced any sort of real health problem. And all of a sudden, I really thought I was going to die. And there was a real possibility of that. And when it finally finished and I got to go home, I had several people ask me, well, did you have any epiphanies? Did you have any life-changing, realizations while you were laying there in the recovery room or anything? And at the time I said no. I said, I was just so busy trying to stay alive. I was just so freaked out about the whole thing that I didn't have time to think deep thoughts at that point. Right? But after, we had everything a few months after that, I really started thinking more about this. And if there was one thing that really kind of leapt out at me for the first time in my life, it was that I suddenly recognized that I had examples of this kind of thing and these kinds of actions in my life from the very beginning. And principally they came from my father. I mentioned that my father's an atheist. He's 81 years old. From my earliest childhood memories, he was one of those people that when somebody said, hey, I need help with this, he was there. Automatic. Didn't have to sit and think about it, didn't have to weigh costs and benefits. You need me, I can be there, I'll be there. And I've watched this my entire life. And I'm really ashamed to say that it took me until I was 42 or 43 years old to realize that this example had been in front of me and I had missed the point the whole time. And one of the really big things that happened regarding this is that in 1986, my freshman year in college, and I get a call from my dad, and he said, Uncle Richard has AIDS. I'm named after my Uncle Richard. Everyone calls me Ed, but my first name's actually Richard. Ed is another uncle. I was named after both of them because they thought I was going to be a girl. And so the whole time that my mom was pregnant with me, they called me Julie Melissa. And then I came out with a stem on the apple. And we had to scramble for a new name, and my two uncles were in the waiting room. Oh, there's his name, Richard. But so my dad called me and he said, Uncle Richard has AIDS. Which, of course, was a stunning blow. I mean, this is 1986. AIDS was a death sentence. You didn't live a long life with AIDS then. And we hung up, and my first thought was, my parents are not going to handle this well. My stepmother, who said, was Pentecostal. And she, fundamentalist, steeped in that anti-gay bigotry, had all the views you would normally attribute to that. And my dad is an atheist, but he's also a man who was born in 1935. Religion or not, that just wasn't acceptable to be gay to most people of that age. And so I thought, boy, they're not going to handle this well. And about 2 weeks later, my dad called me back and he said, Richard's coming to live with us. I said, what? Well, in the house that they had just bought, there was a mother-in-law's apartment. The old garage had been converted into a mother-in-law's apartment, and a kitchen and a bathroom. He could have his privacy, and right across the breezeway where my dad and my stepmother take care of him if he wasn't acutely ill yet. And the first 2 years, boy, they were really rough. And this happened a lot in those days, less now, but in those days when you knew it was a death sentence and you really thought I might have a couple of years max to live, suicide and depression was very, very common. And for the first couple of years, Richard tried to kill himself 2 or 3 times. It was some traumatic situations, and at some point he had an epiphany. At some point he woke up one morning and said, I don't know how much time I have left, but whatever time I have left, I have to do something good with it. And so he and my dad cooked up this idea, and they started shopping for big houses in the Kalamazoo, Michigan area. And they found this gigantic old house, 4 stories high, who knows how many rooms in it, but it was all in terrible disrepair, and they bought it. And over one summer, we went in there and cleaned it out and remodeled it and turned it into little apartments. And they named it Rainbow House. And it was for people who had AIDS but were not yet acutely ill. Well, they still needed some care. And they started knocking on doors, doctors, nurses, therapists and psychologists, dietitians, cooks, and getting them each to volunteer a few hours a week so that there was always someone there to help with their problem. And in order to fund this, my uncle then started Rainbow Resale, which was a clothing resale shop. He had been in the clothing business for all his life, and it was the most amazing resale shop you've ever seen, because he was really good at making those window displays. There were some spectacular window displays in this. And over the next few years, my dad spent thousands of hours in there. Washing clothes, sorting clothes, ironing clothes, tagging clothes, hanging clothes, selling clothes. He had recently retired not long before that. And this is what replaced it. And as a result, an enormous number of people got help as a result of that. And it also occurred to me as I was preparing this talk that I need to give credit where credit is due, because it wasn't just my dad. It was also my Pentecostal stepmother, who never let her anti-gay views get in the way of being a compassionate, caring human being. She took care of Richard for 9 years. She never complained about it. Never tried to change him. Never tried to proselytize to him. He was actually kind of a weird Hindu kind of thing. Never tried to change that. Just took care of it. And she said to me the same thing that Bishop Tutu said. This is what Jesus would do if that's what you do for people that you care about. She never let her religious views get in the way of her humanity in that situation. And I think she deserves a lot of credit. So the point is that I grew up with this example all around me. And like I said, I'm a little bit ashamed to have waited until my 40s to figure out that that's the way everybody ought to be living, you know. And to this day, he's 81 years old. Every Tuesday morning, he gets up and he meets at this local diner with a bunch of overtired guys like him who are all good with tools. They call themselves the Tuesday Tool Men. And people who need help with things around the house, like building handicap ramps, one of the things they do a lot of, putting in guardrails, fixing roofs, you know, that sort of thing. Put in a request for local housing authority passes them on the Tuesday Tool Men. They come out and fix it and make their lives easier. 81 years old, he's still doing it. He's not even the oldest one among these guys. They're a great bunch of guys, and that's how they're replicated. That started in Kalamazoo, Michigan. There's also a group in Lansing, Michigan, and a group in Grand Rapids, and it's an idea that's kind of starting to spread. But one of the things that occurred to me while putting this together was there was another role model for this in a way. And that was my biological mother. My parents got divorced when I was 7. I went and lived with my dad. So I only saw my mother a couple of weekends a month, and then on summertime and holiday time. And I loved my mother. She died 20 years ago. And I loved her very much, of course, but I never had the relationship with her that I had with my dad. Very good. But she encouraged me in this direction too. When I was 13 years old, and I was visiting her for the summer, and she and my stepdad both worked every day. And I'm bored at home. You can only watch so much MTV. And this was the very early days of MTV. And so my mom said, no, why don't you just go down the street and volunteer at the old folks' home, as they called it. There was a care facility about 2 blocks down the road. It wasn't just for the elderly, it was also for people who were handicapped and needed to be taken care of. And I said, volunteer to do what? I'm 13, I have no skills. What am I going to do? She said, just talk to people. Just sit down and talk with them. People who don't have family that visits them very often, you know. Okay, I like to talk. So the next day I went down there and walked into the office and said, I like to volunteer. To do what? Just sit and talk with people. That's a pretty good idea. So they assigned me 5 people, 5 patients there. And one of them really sticks out in my memory, and I still remember his name. His name was Louis Krell. And Louis was a grizzled old World War II vet. He was one of those guys that you could see like every bad experience in his entire life in the lines on his face, you know. And he was mean. When the nurse came in and introduced me to him and said, you know, this is Ed Brayton, and he's going to come in 2 or 3 times a week just to sit and talk with you. And he said, what the hell would I want to talk to that kid for? And he had emphysema, so he coughed a lot, and he had this, the voice that could break up kidney stones. And for the first couple of weeks, he wouldn't even speak to me. You know, I'd go into his room and sit down, and he'd just completely ignored me. And then he started to warm up a little bit, you know. And he started telling stories. All he really wanted was somebody to listen to him. And he'd tell old war stories, buddies that he'd lost, you know, World War II, and he'd bitch about politics. Damn politicians don't give a damn about us, you know, that kind of thing. And I'd just sit and listen. And once in a while ask him a question about something. And this went on over the course of about 8 or 10 weeks. And when I had to leave, when I had to go back home, we lived in a different city, I went into, last time just to say goodbye to everybody. Louis asked me to give him a hug. And I kind of melted, at that point. And I felt like, okay, I made a difference to this guy. But it wasn't just him. He was also helping me. And I think that's a really important point to be made about doing charitable work and helping others. It makes us feel good. And I actually hear people dismiss that idea. Well, you're doing it for selfish reasons. You're doing it because it makes you feel good, not because you actually want to help them. And I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with that? It's a very powerful human motivation, right? To feel good about yourself. We go to a tremendous amount of time and effort to feel good about ourselves and do things like that. It's a powerful human motivation. Let's embrace it, not criticize it. So, here's the bottom line for you. When I tell someone that I'm an atheist, and I do, I'm really only telling them what I don't believe about one single thing. When I tell somebody I'm a humanist, one of 2 things happens. Either they go, what's that? Now I've got an opportunity to tell them what that is. Or they understand what that means, but now I've told them something affirmative about myself. Now I've told them what I actually believe about a whole range of things, about how we should treat other people, how we should treat the natural world, and so forth. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that we should not call ourselves atheists. I still do. I have no intention of stopping. My friend Dave Silverman from American Atheists, we have a little bit of disagreement on this because he is adamant that you have to scream atheist at the top of your lungs at every opportunity. I'm not really interested in labels, though. I'm interested in actions. So, it's okay to say I'm an atheist, and it's okay to say I'm a humanist. But if you're going to say I'm a humanist, that entails a whole bunch of things that you need to do. You need to treat other people a certain way. You have at least a moral obligation, I think, to follow through on those ideas. And I fear that a lot of atheist activists have become so engaged in the battle against religion that they've forgotten to try to set up a secular alternative. We have a lot of people who leave religion and become atheists. I was one of them, and I'm guessing most of you probably were too. That's a tough thing to lose. I mean, on the one hand, it's good that you lost it. You've got a more realistic perspective now. That's great. But in most cases, you've also lost your support network. You've lost the community that you grew up in. And that's losing a lot. That is a very important thing. So where are they going to go when they do that? We have to provide a soft landing spot for them. We have to provide a community for those people. And so part of putting humanism in action, I think, is also creating secular community. And a whole lot of different types of secular communities. Not just one, because people at different points in their life have different needs. So at CFI Michigan, for example, we host about 270 events a year, statewide. And there are a whole range of different things. In Grand Rapids, we do a lecture every 2 weeks on some subject. And a lot of people come to that, and it's enjoyable, just like you guys do here. And it's educational and informative. But we also do a cafe inquiry, which is a smaller group discussion about a topic. We also do a Living Without Religion support group. That's a great landing spot for people who recently left religion behind, because now they've got other people who have recently left it behind, and they can talk about their journeys, they can talk about the difficulties of it. The ones who are more experienced can give advice and so forth. And they just can find a community of support there. We also do Skeptics in the Pub, which is an informal let's get together and drink beer, or drink iced tea like this. And so I think it's really important that we build those communities all over the country, like, of course, the Atheist Community of Austin has done for so long. It's 20 years, you said, next year, right? Yeah. Which is exactly the same age, actually, as CFI Michigan is. We turn 20 next year as well. Communities like this, and I know you guys are already doing a lot of this, with Austin feeding Austin Atheists feeding the homeless, and that sort of thing in this area, and that's great, and I'm thrilled to see it happen, and I hope more and more groups start doing the same thing. I'm also not suggesting that we should stop criticizing religion, criticizing bad ideas. Now, if you read my blog, you know I do this every day, right? And I have no intention of stopping. It's not an either or. It's important to criticize those ideas because there are societal structures that have been built in for a long time. A lot of them are based on religious bigotry. And if religion completely disappeared tomorrow off the face of the planet, those things won't automatically disappear with it. They're now built into the structure of our society. Homophobia and bigotry in many forms will still be there. It will take us generations to undo those negative things. And so criticism of religion is extremely important. And I'm not for a moment suggesting that we should stop doing it. There's a popular Christian book called How Then Shall We Live? And it explores that question from a Christian perspective. And of course, their version of the question is, now that you believe in Jesus Christ, how then should you live? But we can ask that same question from a humanist perspective, right? Now that you know that there is no God that's going to come down here and fix all of our problems for us, that our problems are of our own making, and therefore we're the ones that have to fix them. Well, how then shall we live? Well, I think we start by taking responsibility, not only for our own lives, but for the lives of others. And we start by not just pointing to a problem and saying, what a shame, but saying, let's try and fix that. We need to figure out that we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper to a great degree. And when others are treated unfairly, discriminated against, and spat upon by society, and pushed into corners of invisibility, so that we don't see them anymore and we can go about our day happily and not be reminded of the injustices of the world, that it's our responsibility not to just shake our heads and go, oh, what a shame, but to actually do something about it. And we all sometimes try, I think. I guess the idea of corners of invisibility, which is not my original phrase, is an important one. And it isn't just the uncompassionate that do it. We do it too. Because it's just so overwhelming sometimes. And the problems that have to be fixed are sometimes so overwhelming and so global on a scale, or national, cultural on a scale, that you get frustrated. I can't fix that by myself. Of course you can. And so we push them into these corners for invisibility, because otherwise we'll go crazy. Otherwise we'll be so overwhelmed that we'll freeze and we get compassion fatigue. And I think the way to overcome that is to focused very locally. That each individual who takes this responsibility focuses hyper-locally and focuses on only one or two or maybe three things, depending on how much time you have in your life. And says, I'm going to make a difference there. I'm going to go 3 hours a week to a local school, and I'm going to help tutor kids, and I'm going to help young children learn how to read. And measure your success by the difference you made in those lives, not on the global scale. The Bishop Tutu said, do your little bits of good where you are. It's those little bits come together that overwhelm the world. And most importantly, as I said, I think we start by building communities of people. And then we join those communities with other communities. And I don't care whether they're religious, non-religious, or what. If somebody else wants to go help the homeless, and they're motivated by they think God thinks that's what they should do, come along, let's work together. This past year, I'll give you a great example of why these communities are so important. This past year at CFI Michigan, one of our members, 11 years old, contracted brain cancer. Very rare form of brain cancer. And I was so incredibly proud of the way that community came together to help this family, the Bannister family. People volunteered to cook meals. In fact, we brought over so much food that they had actually to put out a call to see if anybody in the area had an extra refrigerator. Because they could even close the one that they had. And it went way beyond that. People came in and watched their other children when Sandy was having chemo treatments. And people donated money, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation sent them to England, and they went to go to the Doctor Who set, and all of that. And I was just incredibly proud of the way that community came together. And here's the thing. Not one of the people that helped them did it because they don't believe in God. They did it because they're human beings, and they see in other people their humanity. And they think, if the tables were turned, wouldn't I want them to help me in that same situation? And it's in that interdependence, I think, that we find the meaning and the motivation to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. So my plea to you today is this. Be an atheist or agnostic, and be a very open one if that's what you are, and if that's safe for you to do. I know for some people it's not. But don't stop there. If we're ever going to put an end to injustice and discrimination and inequality and bigotry and poverty, we're going to have to work together. And it's a giant colossus of pain and suffering. And we just have to keep chipping away at that base, and half an inch at a time if we're ever going to bring that down. There is just so much work to be done. And I say it's time to get to work. Thank you very much. Do we have time for Q&A?
Sure, we have plenty of time. I have a couple of questions. First one, what I've seen within the non-believing community, or atheist community, is there are sex factions, and sometimes it's really difficult for the one that is, you got to be in-your-face atheist versus the one that says, no, I mean, you work with people regardless of what they believe or don't believe in. And sometimes it's a philosophical breakdown, and sometimes it's just a personal conflict.
Chronic anemia.
So, any ideas about getting past those little petty differences?
I wish I did.
Yeah.
And that division that you mentioned is, on a long list of other divisions.
Yeah.
And for those of us who try to take some sort of leadership role in the community on a large scale, are all, I think, enormously frustrated with it.
Do you also have the division between the politically progressive or liberals and the libertarians?
Sure. That's been present. That's been a big part of the divisions in the atheist humanist community for a long time. Mostly in the atheist community. The humanist community, it's really hard to be a libertarian humanist.
Based on numbers, it's pretty easy for some people.
But a libertarian atheist, I think, is pretty easy to be. And I'm not one of those people who thinks libertarians are all evil people. There was a point in my life where I referred to myself as a left-wing libertarian. I didn't buy the economic part of it all. Sorry, the free market's not going to fix everything for us. You believe in magic. But there's so many deep divisions there, and it is internally frustrating. But one thing I think is true is that for all but the worst among us, I think everybody would agree, at least in the abstract, that we ought to be helping other people. The libertarian ones, may think we shouldn't, or may at least think the government shouldn't.
Yeah.
Anyway. But I think doing those kinds of projects does kind of bring us together and overcome those divisions to the degree that they can be overcome, or at least put them on hold. Okay, let's go build a Habitat for Humanity out. We can argue about this other stuff later. Right now, let's just go try to give somebody a house that needs one, Some of those divisions, I think, are just irreconcilable differences, and they're never going to be fixed. There's an awful lot of just horrible misogynists in our midst. I mean, not a huge amount, but enough to make a whole lot of people uncomfortable. That's never going to be fixed.
Well, again, the Christianity consists of over 30,000 different sects or groups or denominations, depending on. So, I mean, it's a human condition. Right. It's not peculiar to Christians or Muslims or humanists.
This is part of why, for me, humanism is way more important to me than atheism. Atheism is compatible with virtually any other belief system about the world. There are atheists who believe that the government should teach people that atheism is wrong. They're called Straussians. There's some half of the followers of Leo Strauss. Leo Strauss was a philosopher in the mid-20th century. There's a big split among his followers, the East Coast Straussians and the West Coast Straussians. And the East Coast Straussians argue that even though Leo Strauss pretended to believe in God, he had this esoteric reading of all the great philosophers and claimed that all of the great philosophers, going all the way back to ancient Greece, were all atheists, but they had to write it in code. And only the elite, the initiated, can figure out and break the code. And they're the only ones who have the ability to be atheists without becoming degenerates and destroying society. Weird, messed up position. But it's entirely consistent with their atheism, right? Because atheism doesn't have a positive beliefs that go with it. So atheism is compatible with you being atheist Nazi, you can be atheist libertarian, atheist Democrat, Republican, whatever. Humanist, you can't, right? If you now you profess a positive set of ideals that simply are not consistent with Nazism. They are not consistent with libertarianism. They are not consistent with totalitarianism. And so that's why I just think it's one of the many reasons I think that humanism is just a much more interesting idea than atheism. Atheism is a pretty cognitively empty idea. I don't believe in that. Now, it goes a lot deeper than that, and I'm not one of those people. I think that the notion that atheism is like this default belief that we all have is a bunch of nonsense as well. If you are an atheist, you should have at least arrived at that conclusion through a reasoned, critical process of thinking, and you therefore should be ready and willing to defend that position and show why the arguments for religion are wrong. I don't think we are without a burden of proof as atheists. But humanism, because it has a positive set of ideals that comes with it, is to me just a much more fruitful idea. More things flow from that idea. So that's why it's a lot more important to me. Any other questions?
I guess throughout your life, what would you say is your favorite project that you've worked on? And related to that, maybe, I don't know if it's going to be the same answer or not. What is an issue that if you had to choose, you would choose to focus on? Your activism,
as I mentioned a moment ago, I have chronic anemia, so my health prevents me from getting out and doing a lot of this stuff myself. And I wish that didn't, in some ways, make me look like a hypocrite. I just can't do it, But different people have different capabilities. And so what I have focused on is, over the last few years at least, AS community building. And B is things like the foundation down below. And I'm tremendously proud of giving us service for it. Even though I played a small role in it, and I didn't come up with the idea or anything, but it's just something that I just think is a brilliant thing. And so I'm really proud of that. But, I help organize a lot of this stuff. And I should mention, this also goes beyond charity work. This isn't just charity work. On a national cultural scale, we have bigotry and discrimination to overcome and all that. That means political lobbying. That means writing your senators. That means political involvement as well. That is the same thing to me as building a Habitat for Humanity house. You are trying to change society for the better. You are trying to help protect people who need the protection. And so that I do a lot of. Organize annual lobby day at the state capitol, all of that. So I don't know that I say I have a single favorite project. I just say go and do whatever you can do, wherever you are. But if you say what's the favorite thing you had any involvement in developing, the Humanist Service Corps would definitely be there.
What is it?
The Humanist Service Corps would probably be at the top of the list.
Would you consider political lobbying large scale or small scale?
Well, it depends on what level of government you're lobbying, right? If it's a local anti-discrimination ordinance, that's fairly small scale, although it feeds into the larger scale. But obviously, I think it has to happen at every level. And so now the major humanist organizations, atheist organizations, all have lobbyists in D.C., and that's great, and they do some important work. I tend to think that these things change from the ground up, though. I think they start to change at the local level, and then that filters up to the national level. So I think that work is really, really important.
Right. It strikes me, actually, this touches on a few different aspects of your talk. One about identifying more with humanists and less with atheists because it's not a specific position. I'm thinking back to some conversations I've had with Greta Christina, for instance, where she has talked about identifying as atheist because there is specific oppression directed against atheist people.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking that when it comes to oppressive religious groups, a lot of them do seem to act on a very large scale, try to, push these blanket constitutional amendments to get their way, or substantively change education for all kids in the United States to be more in line with their views. Do you feel like we can't do as large scale a counterattack, or do you feel like that's not the way to go?
No, I think it's important work. We're handicapped in one big thing. We can get their money. We ain't got anywhere near the money they've got. And so, it's organizations pooling their resources. I mean, right now, American Atheists have the Amanda Knief. They moved her down to Washington from New Jersey. She is now their chief lobbyist and their legal director. We have Michael Dodora with Center for Inquiry, who lives in Washington, D.C., who is both a lobbyist for that organization in Congress. He's also their representative in the United Nations. So now we're talking on a real global scale. And he chairs the NGO committee there. And you have the Secular Coalition for America that is all they do is lobbying in Washington, D.C., really. And so those groups have pooled their resources. They've also done legal projects. And again, most of this goes on in Washington, D.C., but, you've got Monica Miller from the American Humans Association, you've got Nick Little from CFI, you've got Amanda Knief from American Atheists, and they all work together. They're their legal team. And so they work together on separation of church and state issues and that sort of thing. We have to do that. We can't give up on that. We have to find more resources for it. One of the big developments over the last few years has been the Appignini Humanist Legal Center, which is part of the American Humanist Association. A very generous man named Louis Appignani, a very wealthy man, put up, I don't know how much money for that. He also has put up several $1 million to endow a chair in secular studies at the University of Miami. He also just put up a $250,000 matching grant for the Center for Inquiry. But the development of that legal center, which now has 3 full-time attorneys, David Nios, Monica Miller, and Kat Haig, they've done amazing work, and I follow the legal stuff. The common law stuff is my favorite subject And I read a lot of their briefs that are filed, and they're a cut above most of what I've seen come out of the humanist and atheist organizations on legal work. They really do tremendous work, and that's been a big development. So finding the resources to do that on a large enough scale to make a big difference is key, but no, we can't give up on that at all. I mean, that's a big part of fighting against, particularly legal, forms of discrimination and the anti-trans bills and all of that. And all that filters down to the state level as well. And we've been pushing that in Michigan. There's an anti-trans bill in the legislature. And so we've been fighting hard against that with the help of those organizations in D.C. So no, I mean, we're handicapped. We're starting, they got a 50-yard head start, but that doesn't mean we need to stop running. We need to run faster.
Sort of along the lines of lack of resources, and with landing spots for people who have abandoned religion, specifically with communities. I know in Sunday Assembly has had success in some cities, but here in Austin, there was a chapter and kind of lost steam. I was kind of part of it, so it's been a little demoralizing in that whole aspect. I mean, so for me, it's pretty much just online. I mean, I read and will enjoy your blog and watch Matt's videos and things like that, but it's just, and just lack of resources. There aren't that many. I mean, sometimes a Sunday Assembly or Oasis will be successful, a lot of times, and it won't be. I mean, so what would you say to people who were really struggling with that and were looking for something to just keep going?
Well, first, just a general remark on Sunday Assembly and Oasis and groups like that. The only way I'm ever going inside one of them is if they invite me to speak, and then I'll be happy to come. Mm-hmm. But that's my personal choice. I hate group singing. That's what it comes down to, honest to God. And I don't like getting up on Sunday morning, but I am so glad they're there. Because it doesn't matter whether they appeal to me, right? I'm not their target audience. I've been an atheist my whole adult life. I'm really happy that they're there for people who have recently left religion. Because if you leave the idea behind, but at least keep some of the form and some of the structure, that helps people have more of a soft landing than if you're out, right? So I'm a big fan of Sunday Assembly, even though I have very little interest in going in to one of them. But and Oasis and all of that. And on a more specific level, like there's a really big question. You got to almost any project that sort of fades away. Mm-hmm. It happens because people aren't committed enough to it. Usually, we have a rule. We have one of the members of our board at CFI Michigan, Roger, is a lifelong, now retired UU minister. And he has run church committees, in there for his whole life. And a few years ago, when I first joined the board, in the middle of a discussion, he interrupted and said, I suggest a new rule. Whenever anyone on this board says we should do X, that means I will do X. And if you don't mean I will do X, don't bring up the we should. And that's really changed the dynamic on the board. We think about that all the time now, but it doesn't have to be at a board level, at a volunteer level. Every organization, Christian, atheist, anything, has a problem with this. People who say they're willing to do something. Oh yeah, I'll be there. This is a great idea. I'll be there at 7 a.m. Don't show up. Mm-hmm. Happens in every group. This is not specific to us at all. I'm sure Russell knows and think of situations here. I mean, this is a struggle for anybody who leads any organization on anything. Are the volunteers that are all fired up when it's time to say I'll be there and don't show up. I don't know how you fix that problem. And yeah, it can be demoralizing if you really try to shoot for something big, and people let you down. That's pretty demoralizing. We've got this, I don't know how many of you know about this, but there's been this sort of row in the atheist community over the last couple of weeks because there's a conference planned up in Michigan called the Great Lakes Reason Fest. And the people who started it had these grandiose ideas. They sent me a list of the first of 25 speakers they wanted last October when they first came up with the idea, and I just laughed out loud. I mean, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, every big name there was in atheism. They wanted there. And I'm like, well, you're looking at about $300,000 in speaking fees here. Let's be a little more realistic about basically, the people that started it had these grand ideas that they were going to run this huge conference and 2,000 people are going to show up and it's going to be wonderful. And they had no follow-through whatsoever. And here the thing was supposed to take place in about 2.5 weeks. And just last week they finally had to cancel it. They got 49 registrations. They had people still on the website have people listed as speakers. Matt was one of them. That had never even been contacted about speaking there. I'm speaking there? And I actually started as early as February after I saw what they were doing and that they had no ability to pull it off. Andrew Seidel from the Freedom of Religion Foundation, he's their legal director. We had dinner one time and he said, oh, I'm coming to Michigan in October to speak at a conference. You should go or we'll get to hang out. And I said, Andrew, you're not coming to Michigan to speak at that conference. He said, I'm not. I said, there isn't going to be a conference. There's no way in hell this happened. That's that same problem. It's that I have a great idea, but I'm not willing to put in the work to make it a reality. And yeah, there's a lot of people out there really angry right now, probably aren't going to get their money back over that. And it's demoralizing. And on top of some of the other problems we've had this year with people embezzling money and, all this stuff. I mean, there was a guy last night I was speaking in San Antonio, and a guy stood up in the Q&A, and it was the first meeting I'd ever been at. He said, I've been an atheist my whole life. I've known about this group for years. It's the first time I've ever come to a meeting. And he happened to be asking a question about 2 minutes after a really obnoxious guy got into it with me on something. And the guy actually stood up and said, you can't be a good person unless you're an atheist. And I told him he was full of shit. Literally told him he was full of shit. But this guy stood up and he said, this is the first time I've ever come to these meetings. Why would I come back? He said, when that's all I see, is that kind of thing, why would I come back? He said, people are motivated by doing something positive. People are motivated when they get a positive benefit in their life from something. They're not motivated by seeing people bicker with one another. They are motivated by watching people spew bigotry and hatred. Well, some people are. Trump fans. But he said, I don't know, why would I come back? And then the woman who runs the group, quickly grabbed him after the meeting and had a really nice talk with him and said, that guy's really obnoxious. He doesn't represent. This is a really good group. And it is. Fact on the 10 and 20 is a true group. But people see this happening in the atheist community. They see people angry at each other because the conference got canceled. They see huge controversy over, sexual harassment or, some of the harassment goes so far you wouldn't even believe it. Russell can tell you stories until the cows come home, I know.
Not that I've been harassed.
No, but you've seen it from a lot of people. And we all have. We all have. And people see that and go, what's in that for me? What would I get out of that? Drama? Who wants more drama in their life? So that's one of the reasons why I started giving this talk. That's one of the reasons let's get together and do something good. Stop fighting with one another about everything. And hopefully that good stuff can replace the bad stuff. And I'm not Pollyanna about this. I know it's never that easy, but I think we got to try.
So something that I've noticed on Facebook, since I see your Facebook posts, is occasionally you will jump on somebody for a bad atheist meme or something like that. And see, I'm thinking back to when I first realized that all this was nonsense. And for the first couple of years, saying obnoxious things about religion and religionists was really kind of, a way to deal with things. And I was wondering if, as a comedian, you had ever said things that you knew were not true, but just to make somebody laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so those memes, I think, are things way that, I haven't created any of them, but sometimes I see them and say, oh, ha, ha, ha. And then I realize that it's not intended to be a philosophical statement about the way the world is. It's a way somebody that is highly annoyed with religion and religionists just takes a little poke at them, because we're often the butt of jokes and all kinds of obnoxious behavior because we don't believe in their myths, occasionally you like to have a little poke back, and I was wondering why that's a problem.
You want to know why it really irritates me specifically?
Is it a real problem, or is it just something that is a personal?
It depends on what we're talking about, because of course there's a whole range of there's a range of badness in the memes that I often criticize. I do a thing on my blog called Stupid Atheist Meme. And these things are passed around Facebook that make these wildly oversimplified arguments, Oh, religion only exists because people are afraid of dying. Well, I'm sure that's part of it. If you think that explains the universality of religion in the human race, you're an idiot. There's a lot more to it than that. Stop thinking like a third grader, Here's the reason why it bothers me personally. Because I used to make arguments like that. When I was in my 20s, I was that obnoxious little asshole online in the CompuServe Religion Forum, that had my handy-dandy list of Bible contradictions sitting by my keyboard, And a lot of those things I used to believe. And I'm kind of ashamed about that. And I'll grant you this, I should be more charitable, probably, with some of these things. Some of them are just so bad that,
well, yeah, I've seen them,
charitable.
and there are things that I see about them that I say, that seems rather juvenile, but I'm not going to make a big deal about it.
Well, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
And part of the reason I do is because what's different now than when I was in my 20s and saying shit like that is the internet transmits this stuff over the globe in seconds. And when I see these ridiculous ideas and arguments being made in a meme that's been shared 20,000 times that morning, and I'm seeing it scrolling through my news feed on Facebook, and every 6 inches I'm seeing somebody sharing this like it was real.
You have more friends than I have.
And it started with there's a group on Facebook, the Facebook group called Stop the World Teabaggers Law.
Oh, yeah.
And that was where it started with me. Every day they would put on a meme that was nothing but a fake quote from somebody. It would attribute it to somebody, and it would even do a time. It would say, it would have Donald Trump saying something horrible, as if we need to make up horrible shit that Donald Trump says, right? And it would have 10, 15, 16 Sean Hannity. And then you just do a simple Google search for that quote, and it appears nowhere. It's made up out of thin air. And their defense is, there's satire. We're just doing satire. The problem is, it gets shared by thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who all believe that's, people share it and go, can you believe that son of a bitch said that?
Yeah, that irks me too when you say it's not like there's a shortage of idiot things that Sarah Palin says or Michelle Obama. Just find something that they really said and quote that. Don't have to make it up. It's already crazy.
And what bothers me on another level for that is that when I started pointing that out to people, when I started just leaving a comment and going, this is a fake quote, the response, 80% of the time, wasn't, thanks for catching that, I'll take that down.
She's got in.
It was, I've been called a right-wing shill, for pointing that out. The defenses usually are one of a couple things. Well, it's something they would have said, so that's okay. And I'm thinking, you call yourself a skeptic? You call yourself a rational person, and that's your attitude toward this is, I don't care if it's true or not. It sounds like something they would have said, so I can attribute it to them.
As truthiness.
I don't know how many times I've said in threads like that, where people get like that is, I can't believe I have to explain this. Really? And here's the thing, I don't want to put this all on everybody else. Look, I've done it too. We are all tribalists to some degree. We all engage in confirmation bias. So you see a quote, makes somebody you hate look horrible, you pass it on without bothering to check it. I've done it too. But if somebody says, hey, that's a fake quote, shit, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. But when you see people who publicly declare themselves to be skeptics, to be rationalists, and they defend that kind of thing, I'll give you a great example. Anybody here know who Donald Prospero is?
Yeah.
Very famous paleontologist, written many good books on the subject. I'm not just burying that. But he used to share these wildly inaccurate memes and fake quotes 10 of them a day. Actually, he still does. I just don't see him because he blocked me. Like 10 of these things a day. And I started off being gentle. Hey Don, you might want to check on it. That's it. Never even responded to any of them. And in this second, we're talking dozens of times over the course of several weeks. Never acknowledged it, never took one down. Finally, I just got pissy with it and said, I can't believe you call yourself a skeptic. You do this every single day. And a bunch of his friends leapt to his defense, saying things like, well, he just doesn't take Facebook seriously. And I'd say, that's like saying you don't take the telephone seriously. It's a means of communication. If you are communicating information to other people and you consider yourself a rational, skeptical person, you have an obligation to make sure that that information is accurate. And when you offer up these lame-ass defenses for it, I'm coming after you hard. It really does. I mean, you see, I get pissed about this stuff. Finally, he blocked me, but then I've had other people since then many times. They go, "Yeah, Prothero's still doing it," which doesn't surprise me a bit. So yeah, I just think it's really important. If we're going to be skeptics, be skeptics. And the key to this, Matt and I were just talking about this last night. This is human nature. Okay, we all do this. There's an amazing book called "Mistakes Were Made But Not by Me" by Carol Tapras, and I've probably irritated people by advocating this book so much. It will change the way you think about the way you think. Because of all these social psychology experiments that show that the brain is not built for rationality, it's built for rationalization, primarily. And so we justify what we do after the fact, and we come up with these ad hoc arguments for it to justify that, and we rarely are able to be honest with ourselves. Now, skepticism, the whole point of it is to try to overcome that, I think. And it's not easy to do. I think the most important thing that you can do to help overcome that is to surround yourself with people that you really respect, who will call you out on it. So that when they do call you out, you go, oh, I better think about that. Rather than respond defensively and starting to rationalize. You go, for me, Jeremy Meehan from the Regional Golf Podcast, one of my very best friends, is like the first one. We did a radio show together for a few years. And there were times on the show where I'd make some argument and Jeremy would go, wait a minute. You skipped a step there. You're missing something in your argument there. I don't forget
that Jennifer's husband?
Yeah. But I respect Jeremy so much. He's probably the most consistently rational person I know. That when he does that, I go, ooh, okay, let's talk about this. Let's work this through. Where do you think I made a mistake? And 99 times out of 100, he's absolutely right. So none of us are immune to this. And we shouldn't just point the finger outward. We should point it inward too, But if you have people around you who will call you out on that, that's a huge help in overcoming that.
Well, the way I deal with it is that I understand that I made mistakes and that I was at a different place at one point in my life, and that some of these people that are doing this are young and they're not really, haven't been through enough to have the perspective. And so I try to cut them some slack and say, okay, well, they'll get over it or they won't.
And that's criticism that I accept because, like I said, I think the reason I get so angry about it is because I'm ashamed of having done it myself. That probably should do the opposite to me, right? It probably should make me a little more understanding and I should be more charitable about it. And I think that's probably true. And that's something I need to work on myself.
I think we need a range of people doing things that are, holding people to, the rationality that they claim, and people cutting them some slack. And, we have a whole range of kinds of people in the world, and that's part of being.
Well, there shouldn't be a range of accuracy or truth that we accept, but there should be a range in how we respond to it. And probably we should all respond more charitably in those situations, but me in particular, I consider criticism I absolutely accept.
Well, I think we're getting close to our end time here, so anybody else can talk to Ed individually, and those that want to help put away a couple of chairs would be good. And so that's it. Thank you.